I'm not the bad guy.
Don't worry. That's not that bad.
They call me the guy.
To quote a friend of mine, it's clobbering time.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. I know I turn everything into a joke, but I care. Or I wanted to use that for something important. I waited a long time for this team up.
I'm back at it.
The Fox universe is officially dead.
I'm here now.
Well, technically it's been dead for like 4 years now, but now we have Deadpool 3 to officially celebrate.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Is that supposed to be scary? Pegging isn't new for me, friendo, but it is for Disney.
Deadpool and Wolverine is the third chapter of the Deadpool movies, and another entry in the multiverse saga, or whatever this phase of the Marvel universe is called after Endgame. And does it knock it out of the park? Well, we'll discuss that. As far as the Deadpool movies go, I've always had a lukewarm relationship with the franchise. I never really had much love for Deadpool as a character, despite the fact that Deadpool was actually one of the first comics I actually owned as a kid. It was actually Cable and Deadpool. But I always thought the behind the scenes of the franchise was more interesting than the movies themselves. These movies were always a pet project for Ryan Reynolds, ever since a terrible decision by a studio exec.
Wait, is that you?
Nope.
A decent Deadpool adaptation seemed like a pipe dream. That was until Ryan Reynolds made that dream into reality. And if you were to ask 20-year-old me how I felt about the Deadpool movies, I would have probably said they were probably one of the best superhero movies out there. But I think that was just the initial hype, honestly.
It lives up to the hype, plus.
Fuck it, they probably won't even make a 3.
Yeah, why would they? Stop it too. You killed it.
Rewatching the Deadpool movies again, I definitely don't think they're as good as I remember them being. More than any other superhero movie, the Deadpool movies are essentially comedies, kind of like the Guardians movies, but even more so. If I would compare the Deadpool movies to anything, I would compare them to the early 2000s spoof movies that were all the rage back then. Movies like Scary Movie, Date Movie, Superhero Movie that heavily relied on reference humor that if you didn't get it, you would pretty much have a hard time enjoying those movies. And that's pretty much always been the humor of the Deadpool movies. Easter eggs and references, which to be fair is kind of a lot of superhero movies, is just Easter eggs and references. Pretty much every superhero movie is the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen meme, and the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie pretty much doesn't really fix those problems, except I think I had more fun watching Deadpool 1 and 2 than I did watching Deadpool and Wolverine. And it mostly comes down to the fact that, like most multiverse movies we've been having, like Doctor Strange, Spider-Man No Way Home, The Flash, this movie very much relies heavily on cameos. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for cameos. I've always been a fan of actors coming back and reprising their roles, no matter how big or small. I have never watched the Inhumans show, and I probably never will, but I'm glad Homeboy got to come back and reprise his role as Black Bolt and put on that costume one more time. And I don't know anyone who's a fan of Elektra except maybe my sister, but seeing Jennifer Gardner in the outfit again did put a smile on my face, as well as seeing Wesley Snipes as Blade and Chris Evans as Human Torch.
Who's that Pokemon? It's...
I ain't know my daddy, but I'm sure I shot out of his dick ready.
The biggest surprise more than anything was seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit. I was pretty much spoiled on every other cameo that was going to be in this movie, but Channing Tatum Gambit really caught me off guard. And that one felt the most earnest because that was the only one we haven't seen. We never got to see Channing Tatum as Gambit. And that's another thing about this movie, kind of like those spoof movies of old, you kind of have to be in the cultural zeitgeist to get a lot of the references. Like if you didn't know there was supposed to be a Gambit movie with Channing Tatum, seeing him in this movie might be kind of confusing. I mean, it's no different than the Flash movie where they had Nicolas Cage as Superman. Unless you knew that was a thing, that cameo is just confusing. But unlike Nicolas Cage as Superman, Channing Tatum actually got to do something in this movie. And that's the one thing I do appreciate about the cameos. When Elektra, Blade, and Gambit do show up in this movie, they're treated with respect. They get a cool epic entrance. Deadpool doesn't crack any jokes saying, oh look, it's the B team. No, they are treated with respect. Even though their movies weren't the greatest, they are as much as part of the Fox universe as Deadpool is. Even though the characters didn't really get to do much in this movie.
Stop it.
And I think that's the one disappointing thing I had with the cameos in this movie. As cool as it was to see Blade and Elektra and Channing Tatum as Gambit, they didn't get much to do. Like the big action scene we get at the end of the movie with all the characters teaming up, the coolest moments were with Gambit, because again, we haven't seen Channing Tatum be Gambit. So mostly comes down to these guys are old now, like Wesley Snipes isn't going to be suplexing anyone or throwing high kicks. Same thing with Jennifer Gardner, she doesn't really get to do anything remotely cool in this movie. And that's the funny thing too, is that the characters have a big line about having an ending or a legacy, but besides just being in this movie, and I'm sure that was cool for the actors, they didn't really get to stand out at all. And of course they do that thing that I always hate in these multiverse movies where a character repeats a line that he said in a previous movie, like Blade literally says,
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
They do this in every single movie.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Whoa! Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Whoa! I can do this all day.
I could do this all day.
Whoa!
Like, it doesn't make any sense, but they do this in all these movies. And I think that's my biggest problem with this movie is, unlike the other multiverse movies, is that this movie heavily relies on the cameos, is that there's really not much story. This, to me, is the weakest story out of the Deadpool movies. I think Deadpool 2 had a better story. I don't even really understand what the plot of this movie was even about. It didn't really seem like it needed to happen. But hey, Wolverine's back. Hugh Jackman's back as Wolverine, and who am I to complain about that? And not only is he back, but he brought Laura with her, X-23. And it's good to see Daphne Keane back in the role. I'm not one of those people who thinks that bringing back X-23 and Wolverine ruins Logan. Logan is still a good movie, it still exists. I try to look at these movies as they are on their own. So no, this movie doesn't ruin Logan. But
You got the wrong guy.
You were always the wrong guy. Till you weren't.
their character arcs in this is pretty much the same character arcs they had in Logan. Logan's down on his dumps, all the X-Men are dead, he doesn't want to fight anymore, and it takes the love of other characters to bring him out of his dumps. It's kind of hard not to think of the Logan movie when pretty much all the Deadpool movies did nothing but reference the Logan movie. But I'm not gonna act like I wasn't happy to finally see Hugh Jackman don the yellow costume. Finally, after 20 years of seeing this guy on the big screen, we finally get to see him in the yellow suit. And the mask. It took 20 years just to put that damn mask on, and damn does it look good.
Let's fucking go! Let's fucking go.
Like I said, with all the references to Wolverine in the previous Deadpool movies, it was only a matter of time before we got to see Wolverine and Deadpool on the screen together again. And of course, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have great chemistry together. Even though I don't feel like Deadpool gets much of a character arc in this, Deadpool's character arc in the previous movies was him trying to come to terms of being a hero, or trying to become a hero. And I guess this is kind of the continuation of that, but I feel like they kind of backtrack in this. I think the big problem with Deadpool in this is to make way for all the cameos, we had to get rid of his supporting cast. I mean, they're in this for 2 scenes, but they don't get to join along with the adventure of Deadpool. No Colossus, no Negasonic Teenage Warhead, no Yukio. None of them get to join along, which is a bit disappointing, considering that in the previous Deadpool movies, the final battle always ends with Deadpool defeating the villains with his supporting cast, and in this, that doesn't happen. And I feel like that's a little bit weak, considering the whole plot of this movie is Deadpool trying to save his friends, to save his universe, so they can survive. So it kind of sucks that they don't really get to join along in this adventure with him. Like, compare this to Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, yes, there's all the multiverse stuff with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire,
I love you guys.
but I still feel like that movie was a continuation of the previous Spider-Man movies, with Spider-Man and his supporting cast, with Mary Jane, with Aunt May, with Ned. Hell, even Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was able to bring his supporting cast from the previous movies back and continue the story arcs from that. And I feel like this movie didn't really do that. Instead, we get a very, very, very weak villain in this movie. So the villain of this movie is Cassandra Cain, played by Emma Corrin. And I can't help but think they wasted this character in this movie. movie. First off, it felt odd for a brand new villain for this final entry. Like, it would have been kind of cool if they pulled a villain from a previous Fox movie. Like, imagine if the villains of this movie, instead of Cassandra Cain, was the previous two Doctor Doom movies. Especially with the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. playing the newest incarnation of Doctor Doom. Of course, they probably couldn't have known that ahead of time.
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch!
The thing is with Cassandra Cain is she's such a important character in the comics. Her being this one and done villain for this movie just seems wrong. Especially when she has nothing to do with Deadpool and Wolverine. She has no connection with those characters. They don't know who she is, and she's never met them. There's no rivalry there. I mean, compare that to the first two Deadpool movies. Deadpool had a personal vendetta against Francis in the first movie.
Tell me where your fucking boss is, or you're gonna die! In 5 minutes!
And the second movie was all about him trying to save a kid's life so he doesn't turn out like him. And in this movie, we don't get any of that. There's no relationship between these characters. And there definitely could have been, because Cassandra Cain is the twin sister of Professor X. And that could be interesting for Wolverine, but again, Deadpool has never met Professor X technically, so that means kind of nothing. He knows who he is, but that means nothing. As good as Emma Corrin was, I kind of wish this was an established character. Like, it kind of sucks that we'll never see this character again, especially when she has such a big impact in the comics. But that's the nature of this movie. This movie doesn't really want you to think at all, I feel like, and just wants you to laugh constantly and appreciate the cameos and the action. Speaking of which, the action, I feel like I'm just complaining about everything, but again, I feel like the action was better in the previous movies. Not that the action was bad. I thought the action scenes between Deadpool and Wolverine were pretty good. There's definitely some cool superhero moments in this that I won't forget, as well as the sliver of moments that we got with the cameo characters. I don't know, maybe it's because I've seen so many superhero movies at this point. The action scenes of superhero movies kind of just wash over me. Like, they're just very forgettable at this point. Overall, was Deadpool and Wolverine a good send-off to the Fox universe? Yes and no. I mean, this movie does show that at the end of the day that those movies did matter. It's kind of funny because back in the day when Marvel sold all the rights to their characters, that seemed like the biggest mistake they ever made. But when you really think about it, most of these characters don't really even interact with the grand scheme of the Marvel universe, at least in the comics. Characters like Blade never really interacted with the rest of the universe. The X-Men have always been in their own cornerstone in the universe. The Punisher never really interacts with other Marvel characters for the most part. So it kind of made sense that they all exist in their own corner of the universe, in their own movies. But now Marvel has the rights back to these characters, so it's only a matter of time before we do get the X-Men in the Marvel universe. I mean, we got the Punisher again. Eventually we'll get a Blade movie.
You sure about that?
We're getting a Fantastic Four movie, so it all seems right. But this movie does show that, hey, those movies matter too. People worked on those movies, the actors who worked on those movies had a good time for the most part, and they got to suit up one last time. They get it one last hurrah. Watching this movie felt like watching wrestling when an old wrestler comes back and everyone in the audience cheers and it's like, yeah, they're back, and then they get to do their old wrestling move one last time, and then you slowly remember why they retired in the first place. And that's kind of what it felt like watching this movie. It was cool seeing the old actors back, but you kind of remember why they stopped playing those characters in the first place.
Darkcore, trip hop, whatever kids are listening to these days. Me, I'm more of a Celine Dion fan. She's a Canadian treasure.
Overall, I think this is the weakest Deadpool movie, but I'm glad people are really enjoying it. As of this recording, the movie is currently sitting at almost $800 million. It might hit $1 billion, who knows? And hi, Editor Nate, and it looks like it just made $1 billion. Yep. Who could have saw that one coming? Well, I guess that's what happens when you leave a movie in theaters for more than just a week and don't put it in streaming, and you don't put it on streaming services right away. I wonder what would happen if they made a Deadpool and Spider-Man movie. How much money would that make? Anyway, back to the video. I'm not gonna lie, that kind of depresses me, mostly because this is the same year that Dune Part 2 came out, and I think that's a way better movie than this movie, but that's neither here nor there. Like I said, I'm glad people are enjoying this new Deadpool movie. I just didn't enjoy it as much. That being said, I would love to hear what you guys thought of this movie in the comments down below. How did you feel about the cameos? Is there any other cameos that you would have liked to see? Is this the best Deadpool movie? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, consider giving this video a like and subscribing. As always, this is Infinite Repeat. I've been Nate. Stay up.